Good afternoon. My name is Olga Tavanova, and I want to thank everybody who joins us in Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform. It's day 322 of the heroic resistance of the Ukrainian people, and now we will be talking about the situation in Sumy region. Joining us online is Dmytro Zhyvytskyi, the military governor of Sumy region. Good afternoon, Mr. Dmytro. Good afternoon. Mr. Dmytro, let's start with the situation in the region. What's the situation over there? We know that the settlements along the border are being constantly shelled by the occupier. What's the situation as of today? Yes, today in the morning, the Russian artillery already shelled the village of Novovasilievka in Novhorodska community. The shelling was going on from 7:30 to 8 o'clock in the morning. Now, like an hour ago, there was a shelling by the self-propelled artillery systems. The checkpoints in Bashev's community, the border checkpoint in Bashev's community was shelled. Several communities of the Sumy region, starting from the border with Chernihiv to the border with Kharkiv region, are under constant shelling. And within the last days, the density of the shellings grew significantly. Last week, we only had maybe one day within the last couple of months without shellings at all, but in fact, it's happening on a daily basis, starting from dozens shellings to maybe hundreds of shellings per day. The enemy uses cannon artillery, MLRS, and 120 millimeter mortars. Also, they drop the explosives from the unmanned aerial vehicles, and also the shelling is performed from the settlements across the border with Ukraine. From the Russian side of the border, there was also a sabotage group detained by our territorial defense forces, which try to penetrate the Ukrainian territory from Russia. Well, two of those sabotage group remained here forever in our soil. The rest fled back to Russian Federation. Do you make it avoiding the victims among the casualties among the civil population? Well, yes. Fortunately, the shellings which are going on, they're either happening during time when people are not at their homes. So all the shellings incoming from Russian Federation. So the shellings, they mostly fall on the villages and settlements across the border, maybe 10 kilometers from the border with Russia, and people know how to act in situations like that. People know how to seek shelter. They know how the launch sounds, how the incoming shell sounds, and they react properly to all those sounds. They know how to have shelter in place. They hide underground, but unfortunately, about a month ago, there was a shelling of a center of Belopilya community and Lozhbyanska community. That is more in the depth of Ukraine, more in the depth of the Sumy region. It's about 20 kilometers from the border to Russia. And unfortunately, we had casualties back then, but practically on a daily basis, there are residential areas being targeted by Russians. One residential building was destroyed yesterday. 2 days ago, there were 5 residential buildings destroyed to the ground by shelling. So as a result of those shellings, we have damage of critical infrastructure, aerial power lines. The businesses suffer as well, including the agrarian businesses, which are located not so far from the border. Sometimes the shellings result in fires. The infrastructure is being destroyed. So it's a pure terror and genocide committed by Russians in our territory. From their from their territory, from across the border. So what's the situation with the critical infrastructure in those areas along the front line, talking about the region in general, what's going on with the water supply, heat supply, and electric power supply? Well, all the cities with the centralized heating, they're being supplied with heat properly. The temperature regime is being maintained in correspondence with the temperatures outside. Maybe for a week now, the temperature reaches falls below 20 degrees centigrade, below zero. So the enterprises work in a normal heat supply mode. Where here there is centralized water supply, it operates in normal regime as well. But as a result of shellings, we sometimes have shutdowns of electric power due to the damage of aerial power lines. But the electric technicians, they react promptly to mitigate the consequences of such damage, such strikes. The Ukrainian state emergency services, they help to clear the debris, to cover the broken windows, to cover the broken roofs in the damaged residential areas. Unfortunately, within the last 2 months, we had a number of installations damaged, in installations of medical infrastructure. In Khotynska community, there was a newly outfitted hospital, village hospital, very up-to-date, very modern, which was destroyed by 152 millimeter shell launched from a self-propelled artillery system. Unfortunately, that hospital was completely destroyed. There are also shellings of social infrastructure in Belopilska community. For example, there was an asylum facility which was shelled while the patients were evacuated to other locations. Still, the building was destroyed. But there are people remaining in those areas, mostly of the older age. Those who have children, they mostly left, but those who have their domestic cattle, domestic animals, they still remain in the area. And those who work with the businesses located along the border, they remain. We work with the international organizations in the area of supply of the humanitarian aid. The projects are led by or supported by the United Nations organization and private charity funds. They help us a lot with supply of the generators, equipping the critical infrastructure installations with the generators, and we help the hospitals. We have other medical facilities to to ensure uninterrupted electric power supply. We handed the 3 8-watt generators to RRT concern to ensure the uninterrupted electric power supply for our mass media when the TV is off, when communication is off, so we could keep the population informed through frequency modulation waves. Well, talking about the process of reconstruction, did it start in those settlements which are not currently under shellings, those in the depth of the territory, and what was your main focus of your attention? Well, it was about 4,700 destroyed or semi-destroyed buildings or installations in the region. For the time being, we reconstructed 1,389 facilities. Those works don't stop either for weekends. The works are in progress all the time. First of all, we're talking about the reconstruction of the critical and social infrastructure installations in all the settlements where it's possible. Where we can reconnect the heating supply, we reestablish the electric power supply for critical and social infrastructures. we reconstruct the private residential buildings, but unfortunately we have limited resources, so we focus our attention mostly on hospitals, educational institutions. We have 127 educational institutions destroyed or damaged across the region, and unfortunately the number of such installations grows on a daily basis. For example, if for the moment of a full deoccupation of Sumy region in April, we had 1,800 damaged installations. As of today, this number grew up to 4,700. So it's been 9 months that there is no presence of Russian military or active warfare in the territory of Sumy region, but due to the shelling from the territory of Russian Federation, we still suffer damages, and the scale of destruction grew almost thrice. Well, you mentioned the educational institutions, so about the education process in the region, do the kids study online or do some of them study offline? Yes, in the 20-kilometer zone, the regional council adopted the resolution to perform the education process in online mode in order not to pose risk for the students, because we see that the shellings are incoming to hospitals and schools and institutes. So children mostly study online. A lot of children actually left. Many families left abroad, many left into the depth, to the safer areas, into the depth of the territory of Ukraine. But the rest of the region studies in a mixed mode, both online and offline. But we recommend to reestablish the offline training for better quality of education, so that children get adapted to the collective. Now everybody is on winter recess, and the local governments, they take the resolutions about the periods of such holidays. However, we recommend, like last week we had a meeting of the regional council for issues of education, and we recommended to minimize the period of winter holidays, so children come back to the schools, their education process is not interrupted, and that the children don't study during summertime. Thank you for this information. We have questions in the studio, please. Good afternoon, Ukrinform. Could you please tell us what are the funds that the reconstruction is being paid for? Are these the local budgets, and do you have any plan for reconstruction of these installations, and are foreign organizations or foreign countries interested in reconstruction, and who already promised to take part in this reconstruction process? Thank you. Thank you. The main part of the reconstruction are the costs of the local budgets and the state budget as well. We received 250 million hryvnias from reserve fund for reconstruction, and we procured construction materials upon application of the local communities, of the community governments through, and the funds were distributed among communities, and we use our own resources to procure those construction materials which are used for reconstruction works. So those are the regional funds, the private organization funds, private sponsors, including, for example, French organization ATTEC, who undertook this responsibility to fulfill the works on reinstalling the windows in private residential buildings in Ochtyrka, in the city of Ochtyrka, which suffered rocket and bomb strikes. The apartment blocks are being reconstructed. One such 9-story building is almost reconstructed, and the internal outfitting is almost completed, so people can come back to their homes. Meanwhile, back in summer, we had a huge doubt whether that building would be actually fit for residents. We work with the United Nations projects. We raise international funds. We get international organizations involved. A Swiss agency works on reconstruction of water and heat supply facilities. The charity funds are helping us in reconstruction of apartment blocks as well. And we recommend the communities to arrange partnership, to help arrange partnership with the neighboring countries, with the neighboring cities, so there is a horizontal teamwork, there is a horizontal cooperation, and the governments and municipalities of other countries could help the communities of the Sumy region. Mr. Dmytro, thank you very much for finding time and joining us, dear colleagues. I'm reminding you, joining us was Dmytro Zhyvytskyi, the military governor of Sumy region. Right now, our team is working on the schedule for tomorrow, so follow our announcements, bear with us, trust in our armed forces, and glory to Ukraine.